How do y'all, you delicious people? I'm here today to review The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 5. So, I feel like what I'm going to grade here and how honest I'm going to be about this episode is to kind of determine certain values of characters. But I have to state that I have to be honest and fair with every single episode and just call it like I was to just experience it. And that'll probably tell you where I'm going to go with this one. I felt that this episode was boring, and I was to feel like this for most of this episode was just an extension of how the last episode was, and this was just a story that I just didn't need to be told. If we honestly were to have picked up in this episode where the last episode left off, and just kind of continued from there, from where this episode was, I probably would have been a lot more fine with this episode if they started out that way. But instead, we have just a lot of throwaway dialogue, and we honestly have Sam's character, who, of course, is to be a character that is to need things kind of read or kind of sign language back to him, because of course he is a sign language character. And so we have me also, like, on top of dialogue that seems meaningless and has to be thrown away, we have to either repeat dialogue for Sam so that way he knows what's going on, or we have just sign language dialogue between these two characters, and I'm just like, I don't want to, like, read also dialogue that I'm going to just want to throw away. It's just, man, that is to just be, like, a real inconvenience for frickin' me. As well as also, this whole episode was to just be an inconvenience for me. So, with that said, there is to be a big battle that happens, like, almost towards the end of this episode, because we have a little bit more story after that. It's not like at the very end, but it's pretty dang close. And so I was like, okay, like, that's good and all. Like, we have some infected that we didn't see before, but, like, that doesn't make up for the fact, like, that battle doesn't make up for the fact of, like, a very slow and dialogue wasted episode. And so, yeah, so with that said, that's all that I really have to go on and state how I felt about this episode. And so, with that episode, this episode was just a bad episode. And really, so let's kind of tee up this one. So, we have this episode that is to be from the perspective of Henry and Sam, who are to escape Fedra, because we've come to find out there was a rebellion that comes in and wipes out Fedra, and then Fedra, the headquarters, is just to be taken over by this rebellion, because I guess I probably called them Fedra in the last episode, but, like, to also then realize that these were, of course, to be people that just took this place over. So, Henry and Sam are kind of sneaking off to, at some point, meet up with Eldstein and, or Adelstein, and we have them meet together, but then the guy goes missing, and so they realize that they just have to go on without him. And so we have both Henry and Sam that go on to meet up with Joel and Ellie, and they figure out a strategy of how to get out of this town, and that leads them to get into this firefight with these characters that lead them right back to Kathleen. And then with all the sounds and shots and explosions and all the stuff that's kind of going on in this episode, that just leads us to then turn around and have the infected that get involved in this battle. And woo-wah, big battle, big massive fight. And certain people die, certain people that we didn't really care about anyways, so it's all good. And then by the end of this episode, we realize that certain people's journeys are going to end here, but then we still have characters that are still making their way to Wyoming because show. So, with that said, a journey or story or whatever that was just like, okay, like I could have done without this one. They could have really just skipped to whatever was next because it really wouldn't have made a difference. So with that said, yeah, like maybe it's like a whole thing of like I would have wanted a lot more infected or something like that. I would have liked there to be more of a like a real like exciting episode going on instead of what was just delivered here, where we even get like the story of Henry and how he's technically connected with Kathleen. Now she like will stop at nothing to get back and get to Henry, and then we finally figure out why. And I'm like, well, I could have figured that out anyways. I gotta put the pieces of the puzzle together of that like last week, and I already did. And so they didn't have need to have taken like a whole episode just to get us to that point. It really just goes on to be like, well, but yeah, but the end of the episode though. So yeah, it's just yeah. So with that said, let's double fire this bad boy up. It's about that time, of course, again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. So in the beginning of this episode, we just see Henry and Sam who are escaping Fedra as it is taken over by this rebellion of sorts. And so they make their way to this place that they are going to share with Eldstein. And so we have Kathleen that is going on to ask all the people that are to have been rats who were to snitch on people to possibly get an apple or get some kind of medication. And so we come to find out, like, yeah, like all these people had probably benefited from like just kind of ratting people out so they can live another day. And that is kind of what our role of The Last of Us has just kind of come down to. So Kathleen is wanting these people to snitch to figure out where Henry was heading. And so we have one guy who comes forward and he's like, well, like, I heard Henry was talking about going here or going there, but he didn't tell me exactly. So it was like, yeah, that was a waste. Like, we have Kathleen that almost wants to just shoot all of the snitches from, of course, they can't be trusted anyways. Like, how can you trust the word or how can you trust anything about them? But so Kathleen continues on to try and figure out where Henry is. So even to the later part of the episode, we have Kathleen that is to make her way back to her home that she was originally at when she was young. And Kathleen asked Perry, it's like, well, hey, like, did you go back to the place that you were young and you lived at? And Kathleen looks at Perry, and Perry's like, well, like, no, because that was like hundreds of miles from here, and it would have been a waste. But so Kathleen is to have this whole story about her and her brother going on and telling her that, like, no matter what happened, no matter what kind of weather or whichever, like, they would go on and always be safe in this this big box that is to be their room. And so Kathleen is to go on and state that even her brother would not want her to go on and do what she's doing right now, because even Kathleen's brother wanted to have Kathleen just kind of forgive what had happened to him. But Kathleen's just like, well, like, I get what he's saying, but I'm going to ignore it. Because she still has vengeance and she's a woman scorned. And she's like, no, I'm still going to go after this person. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how many people are going to have to die to get to this person. I'm going to get to this person. And so, in a way, I get that. I clearly can understand where it's just like, no, like, I'm set in my ways. Like, I've made this decision. I've made my bed, and now I'm going to lie in it. So we go on to have Henry, and we have Sam, who end up with Eldenstein, and they really didn't have enough rations for 3 people anyways, because that's all they could get. And so by the time that Eldenstein disappears, Eldenstein, I don't remember how it's exactly pronounced, we have Henry and Sam that are starting to realize, like, well, hey, like, I'm starting to get hungry, like, we only have 1 real can left. So, like, they're waiting for this guy to come back, Eldenstein, and they realize, it's like, dude, he's not coming back, so we might as well just realize that we're on our own. So Henry and Sam are to realize, like, well, like, let's kind of look out this window, and all of a sudden they do. They realize that a shootout is going on, and we come to find out that Joel is kind of trying to shoot out against these mercenaries, or these marauders, or these hooligans of sorts, these people who were the rebellion. So Henry is to kind of see this as, like, very hopeful, that it's like, well, yeah, like, if anything, this guy is like me, like, maybe we can kind of team up together, and maybe we can use our numbers to kind of fight our way out of here if that's what we really need to do. So Henry and Sam come up with this plan to go to the tallest building, and come to find out they find where Joel and Ellie are. Really just kind of skipping a lot of this episode, but as far as dialogue goes, but a lot of it's like, oh yeah, like, Sam is to mention that he's hungry and multiple times. Yeah, that sounds really exciting for me. I have to go on and just say, like, Sam says he's hungry, and so Henry just goes on, like, well, yeah, I get that, but there's nothing I can do about it. And then Sam goes on, like, but wait, but I'm still hungry. It's like, who cares? I'm sorry. Like, you want to go on and hunt down your food, then that's what you have to do now. It's the world we live in. It's a crap world. It's the apocalypse world. We can't just go and make our way down to our Cubs and our general stores and just find food, because most of that place would probably have been picked over by now. The convenience of general stores and stuff that would have to just stock their food every week. We don't get that convenience anymore, because the world has turned into crap. Literally. Because look at the zombies and infected or whatever. They look like crap half the time. Moving on. So Henry and Sam put a gun on both Joel and Ellie. As Ellie is waking up Joel, and this is kind of where we kind of left off from the last episode. And really, that's the only thing that I really could have... They really just should have picked up where they left off. They really should have. Waste all that other crap. So we have Henry that is telling Joel that, hey, like, I feel like I can go on and trust you, because I feel like we're kind of like different people on the same side of the same kind of coin, so to speak. However you want to say that, how metaphorically or however you want to split that. To say that these people like are on the same side of things because like both the rebellion wants these people dead. So like the enemy of their enemy is their friend. That's where I was kind of going with there. So the way in which that Joel is to continue to talk to these guys, he really is to not like give them any kind of comfort, to just be like, oh yeah, like you can trust me, like come on, like just let your guns down. No, he's just like, I don't know if I can trust you. Like, like, but so Joel kind of like slowly is to tell like Henry, it's like, well, can I get up from where I am so I can kind of sit up? And so Henry's like, well, yeah, of course you can. So the more and more that we get Joel to talk, the more Ellie's like, man, Joel, like, give him some kind of comfort to like tell him that like, yeah, like we'll work with them. And Joel's like, no, I'm not, I'm just no. So we have them we have them come up with a plan of how to get out of town, and so we come to find out that that plan is to go through the tunnels, basically going through sewers and all kinds of things to try and get the heck out of there. They state that it's not really sewers, it's more like the kind of like subway or like the North Rail kind of way of getting through the town. So come to find out in this town, Henry states that at some point the zombies were kind of forced underground, but Henry is to know good and well that the zombies are no longer down there and that like they should be fine. Here's the goofy thing though. In the other episode, we had both Kathleen and we had both Perry that were to tell us otherwise. But I guess once you get to another part of the episode, it's like, no, 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 no. Like, I guess we just lucked out here. Because they go in the same place that both Kathleen and both Perry, like, went into. And all of a sudden the zombies are gone then? So confused. The heck, show. The heck. So, Henry and Sam, Joel and Ellie go down into this tunnel. There's no zombies there. It's like, wow, you couldn't have at least given me like one whole zombie that just stuck around and like gave me like something to just be excited about? For a zombie to just or an infected to just randomly appear and just that at least would have given me something to just be like, ooh ah, like they fought somebody in the early parts of the show. But no. So they go through this tunnel and not a single soul or whatever could be there. And so come to find out, this town decided, I guess in the very beginning, to basically do what Fallout did, if you guys remember the Fallout video games, where we just had a lot of people who just went underground and decided that that was the best course of action. But it seemed that, I guess, at certain points, not everybody was adhering to the rules, and maybe certain people had gotten infected. And that's where kind of Joel draws the conclusion that maybe certain people got infected and started killing other people. And that's the story of how we write off how there's no longer people underground and how they're more actually to be instead on the surface. Or really, you could just go on and kind of write it out in the very like first Terminator movie, where all it takes is like one infected person to just kind of sneak in without somebody knowing, and boom, a lot of people die. Kind of like in the first Terminator movie, where the Terminator comes in with the human skin and just rolls in there and just kills everybody. and they're like, oh my god, like I guess this is a Terminator that has skin on his body. Oh my god, we didn't know. So it's probably like that. So we have Ellie and we have Sam who are looking at this comic book. And so the comic book is to give them the title of the episode, because I guess the slogan of this comic book is to say to endure and survive. And so they have to go on and keep stating that throughout the whole entire episode, telling us the title of the episode because they have nothing better to state. Endure and survive. Technically what you're doing in the infected apocalypse, because we can't go on and state that this is a zombie apocalypse because this is just infected, and plus they're technically not zombies anyways. They're fungus dead, fungi dead, or fungi women. I don't know, like it could be a difference of genders and whichever's. I don't want to say fungi. Whatever. Moving on. I spent too long at that. Plus, I'm spending too long in this review. Let's get out of here. Quickly. The end. So, funny. Not really. Anyways, I wish I could just roll to the end. So we get through this tunnel after we, of course, have Henry, who is to tell us that Henry desperately needed to take care of his brother, not his son, his brother, Sam. And let me kind of push this up closer to me a little bit closer here. Batman. Anyway, moving on. We kind of find out that Sam was to have leukemia, and it seemed that Henry desperately wanted to help out Sam, and come to find out there would be a big price to pay for getting certain medication to help out Sam. And so Henry needed to go on and find certain people that could be fed to Fedra and be tortured and for information, or possibly just killed quickly. And so Henry was to state that he went on and took a great man, who I'm assuming was to probably be Eldenstein, is what I would probably draw the conclusion of, because he's a doctor, and because he states, like, yeah, it was a great man. And then he also took Kathleen's brother also to be fed to Fedra. So we kind of was like, okay, like I guess that justifies why, like, Kathleen is after Henry, but still, the story didn't really need to be told here. So we push on after this, and so they get out of this tunnel. Nothing really happens. A lot of the story is just meaningless. And so they're out of the tunnels, and they're just kind of walking around, and all of a sudden there is to be snipers on these houses, which leads them to now be pushed against this car. So we have Joel, who's like, well, hey, I'm going to, like, because we don't really have much as far as weaponry goes. Joel has to kind of sneak all the way around into the back of the house and then, like, get to the guy while he's kind of shooting and, like, getting him from behind. So Joel wants the guy to just kind of give up his gun and then just kind of stay there for an hour, but the guy is not willing to do that. So Joel has to forcibly kill this man, because really, for a lot of characters, I'm sure they'd rather get killed than have to continue to, like, starve and have to, like, fend off infected all day long. And so, yeah, like, if you're gonna go out, at least it's gonna be, like, going out this way, and it's gonna be, like, not by your own bullet. So legitimately stating that you would just end your own life. So we have Joel that takes this guy's sniper rifle because he's going to need it. Because come to find out, Kathleen and Perry and all of her people are to make their way kind of bulldozing or smashing through all of these cars, and then, of course, will make a lot of noise. So we have at one point where there's kind of bulldozer vehicle that has the words like run in front of it. We start to find that Joel is trying to shoot the guy that's the driver of this vehicle. So this leads to like a vehicle explosion, and like a vehicle ends up kind of getting dumped off to the side here. Then we find out that like there ends up being this hole that leads to a number of zombies just kind of coming from this hole, because we come on to find in the story that zombies were in the underground, so we find out where the zombies are now at. So all these zombies come out of the woodwork. We have clickers, we have bloater, and it seems we have some stalkers, but again, it's very hard to determine what a stalker is compared to the normal run-of-the-mill infected. It just is very difficult. Plus, you would have to just really like be like a really good keen eye and really be able to tell the difference. But so we also had at one point where like Henry and Sam are talking with Ellie and Joel, and they talk about how they had faced off against some clickers and survived. And Henry's like, wow, really? Like, you guys faced off against clickers? Like, how are you still alive? You should be dead. So, like, really, I guess, telling us how difficult clickers really are. But it seems that they go on and kill quite a few in this episode, as well as... Like, Ellie just goes on and she just has, like, a knife, and she's just, like, stabbing into a lot of these zombies because she is to run out of bullets shooting into this vehicle from which Henry, her, and Sam were trying to run away from. As when they kind of hide behind this car, we have Kathleen that's like, Henry, just give yourself up. And Henry's like, well, like, if I give myself up, will you let these kids go? And Kathleen's like, no, of course not. Because Kathleen states, is like, well, Henry, like, well, I'm obviously going to kill you, but, like, your kid is with you, of course, and, like, the girl that's with you is also with that guy, and, like, they were causing a lot of trouble in our town, so, yeah, like, every single one of you are all going to get just killed. Just don't even doubt that. So when Henry just kind of gives himself up, we then all of a sudden have the zombies come out, and they're starting to attack all these people to kind of even the odds. So we have Ellie that is to kind of run off by herself, and Joel is to use this kind of sniper rifle to kind of keep these zombies off of Ellie, even though it doesn't really matter anyways, because Ellie is, again, like, she wouldn't get infected either way. But so Ellie tries to find this car that has this window opening, and so she's looking at it, and Joel's like, aha, like, I know where you're going, and so I'm going to help you. So Ellie gets into this vehicle, and she's like, okay, I can just kind of wait this out, and everyone can just kind of kill everyone off, and they'll be fine with me because I'll just be in this car. All of a sudden, we have this clicker who gets into the car that Ellie's in via that same window, and Ellie's like, God damn, I like had to risk so much to get in this freaking car just to have this clicker who just slides right on in. And so Ellie then has to realize that it's like there's only so long that she can really stay in this car. So she opens the door and just kind of slams the clicker back into that car. So Ellie is now just running off and finding both Henry and both Sam are kind of underneath this vehicle trying to get away from these clickers. And so now Ellie has to just go on and take this knife, and she's like kind of just stabbing into these clickers, as well as Joel is trying to fire from where he can see. So Ellie goes on and gets Henry and Sam, and then at some point, like, Joel is like, okay, let me kind of meet up with these characters also. And we have Kathleen that is kind of just chasing after Henry and Sam. And by the time that she goes on and has this kind of moment where she thinks that she can kind of whip out her gun and finally get to these people after all, because we had Perry who goes on and takes this bloater and tries to fight him off, and the bloater just snaps Perry's neck, so he's dead. And I was like, wow, okay, all right. Like the big, massive bloater character. And it's like, well, yeah, there's no way we're going to easily just take this thing down. So Perry just tells Kathleen, it's like, hey, just run. Because, like, there's too many infected here. So Kathleen goes on and again is with Henry and the rest of the people that she probably wants to kill. And then all of a sudden a clicker ends up showing up and is to attack Kathleen. And so she, of course, cannot get to the people that she wants to go on and kill. So I'm like, man, any of the stuff that Kathleen had in this episode was just also another waste, because now she's probably dead. I say that because I just have this weird suspicion that, like, they're gonna somehow goofily, like, write in, like, oh no, Kathleen didn't really die. What really happened was she just kind of, she just murdered this infected and she's still alive. You just don't know. You're just thinking that she's dead. But she still has to go on and get to Joel and Ellie or whatever. I don't know. I'm probably just thinking way more into this than I probably am. She's probably dead. Confirmed death, because it will probably happen. Anyways. Yeah, I know the game. I know she's dead. You never know. They could write her back into the show at any moment. They could write her. They could be like, oh, no, she's still alive. Moving on. Because I'm taking too long with this. So, we have Joel who's telling everybody, let's get the heck out of here. So, they make it to this, like, kind of, it looks like a hotel kind of location. So, they go to this one, like, hotel, and so, we again have the two, like, kids who are reading, this comic book, and we have Ellie and Sam talking about the number of comic books that they have. So Ellie is going on and reading this comic book to a person that can't hear what she's saying. And, like, I don't think Sam can read lips all that well. So, like, Ellie is just kind of doing this story, and I ask why. But so we have Joel and we have Henry that are telling, like, okay, like, you guys can, like, we've had a very long night. You guys go off and just go to sleep. So we have Sam that is to talk to Ellie, even though, like, Henry and Joel told them to go to sleep. So they start talking, and so they start, like, basically writing on this thing to one another and talk about, like, well, hey, are you ever scared? And Ellie's like, well, no, I'm never scared because I'm technically always scared. So it's like an oxymoron kind of thing. It's like, well, yeah, like, since I'm always scared, like, I can never really be. It's like, anyways. So we have them at some point, like, talk about what they're scared about, and we have Ellie that states that she's scared of scorpions or some goofy thing. So, but really, she's scared just about like being alone or left alone because she's the only one who can't get infected. So I'm assuming that would be a big thing, that everybody else, all the other humans, just kind of get infected and she doesn't. So, come to find, this whole thing leads to us finding out that Sam is to be afraid that if you get infected and you turn, that like a piece of you will still be alive and know what all is going on. Because come to find out, Sam himself is to have gotten a bite mark on his leg, telling us that he's going to be infected. No, not Sam, the character that we've only known about for one whole episode, and so his whole entire life probably doesn't mean much, as well as Henry does. And that is to also just state, like, there's so many characters that just felt like we never really know anything about them, so it really doesn't matter how long they live in the show, sadly enough. But so, Sam was telling Ellie, it's like, well, hey, will you go on and will you just kind of just stay up with me? And Ellie's like, sure, I'll do that. So Ellie at some point falls asleep and wakes up the next day, and so Ellie's a little concerned if Sam turned, and so Ellie's like, well, I don't know if I should just kind of like just touch him or anything, because he might actually turn into a zombie, or maybe he'll be fine, maybe, we don't know. So Ellie goes on and is like, well, hey Sam, hey, how, and because it's not like she can also just like say the person's name and they'll be like, huh? Like, doesn't quite work that way also. So Ellie like touches, I think just kind of touches Sam on the shoulder, and he turns and he's infected. So we of course have Sam, who is trying to make Ellie a manwich, or a sandwich, or a person witch. I don't know, either way, it's a meal of sorts. So Sam is nibbling on a little bit of Ellie, and trying to anyways. And so what happens is Joel is tempted to just kind of grab his gun to save Ellie, and Henry's like, don't you do it. So Henry has his own gun, and he realizes that he has to shoot Sam, because it's the right thing to do. So we even had Ellie, who is to tell Sam that her blood is technically medication, because at one point Ellie had gotten like bitten herself or scratched herself, and like she wasn't infected like any other people normally would. So Ellie is to cut her hand the night before and put blood on Sam's leg, hoping that it would just kind of go away. Yeah, it doesn't work out that way, I guess, sadly enough. So yeah, so now like Ellie is struggling with Sam, like, oh no Sam. So Henry forcibly needs to go on and shoot Sam in the head and kill him. And Henry, after doing that, is to regret making that decision. And so Joel is telling Henry, hey, Henry, how about you give me your gun? I'd really appreciate it if you just kind of hand that gun over. I would really just like to just take a look at it, just see the model number, how many bullets are left in the chamber. I really just like to, like, get a little just feel of that gun for a minute here. And because Joel knows where this is going to head next. And so what happens is that Henry is to really just be so upset with what he just did that Henry puts the gun onto himself and fires and kills himself. And so I'm like, wow, like, what a waste of characters that we just took a whole thing to just waste. So many, like Kathleen dead, Henry dead, Sam dead, Elstein, he's dead from the last episode. We realized that. All these characters that we had to tell stories for that really didn't go anywhere by the end of this. And we still just had like, well, yeah, but like we still got more journey of Joel and Ellie, and man, that infected battle though. But still. So after this, we go on to have Joel and Ellie that have to use so much energy to bury these characters. And by the end of it, we have Ellie that is to write on that kind of little weird kind of sheet of paper thing and just say the words, "I'm sorry." And so Joel looks at it, and so Ellie is telling Joel, it's like, well, hey, it's time to get back on the journey, back to Wyoming. So Joel's like, oh, okay, all right. So he puts the paper down and just kind of walks away. So that is to be how we just kind of finish up here. With that said, I'm going to try to get out of here. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.